Without any further ado, the final presentation piece.
Thanks, Jeff. Guess I'm in the coveted anchorman position here. Good morning, everyone. Wally, thank you and congratulations. Well deserved. For those of you I haven't yet met, I'm Tony Tinari. I've been my privilege to be a trustee of this organization for a few years. And as of about 45 minutes ago, I'm the newly appointed solicitor for a year. We'll see how that goes. Together with my colleague Chris Yates, who you'll meet in a moment, we're going to discuss this wonderful topic of alternative revenue sources. When we conceived this, which I would suggest to you is a natural progression from our efforts in sustainability, examining how do we create a financially sustainable environment to support the projects having to do with the bay and the beach and drainage and water conservation. We conceived the project. Rich had the bright idea that it would be good to talk about alternative revenue sources, and I said, you know, Rich, you mean like taxes, right? He said, yeah, taxes and fees and utilities, stuff like that. And so my reaction was, okay, Rich, we'll take that on. I just want you to know, whatever it is I did to deserve this, I promise I'll never do it again. I think of this really as the project brief. This is the kickoff, a preview of coming attractions, if you will, for the examination that we propose to make over the coming year. And the premise of it is, as we all know, adequate financial resources are critical to address environmental sustainability. We have some major expenses coming up if we're to be effective in mitigating some of the effects of the environment that affect the community we all love. We also know that we're very dependent upon one primary funding source, and that's real estate taxes, near and dear to all of our hearts as homeowners in Stone Harbor. So we plan to look at it. I guess the critical point I would make for today's purposes is that we are not advocating a particular solution or a new tax or a new fee or a change in funding. What we are advocating is a critical examination of the alternatives. What's available to us? I would like to suggest to you, and though actually Wally and I have had a back and forth about this wonderful, you know, four legs of the stool analogy over the years, but I find myself in the position of suggesting that there are actually four legs to the financial stool as there are four legs to the environmental stool. We know that prudent expense management is key and critical to the management of any local government, of course. But you can't save your way to prosperity, right? So adequate and sustainable revenue streams are equally, if not more important. The third point is one of particular emphasis and perhaps one that has not been the focus of a lot of jet fuel, if you will, in many municipalities, and that is equitably distributing the financial responsibility among the people that benefit from the activities of local government. In the case of Stone Harbor, all the amenities that we provide, not only to people like yourselves, the owners of homes in Stone Harbor, but also to the summer residents, the vacationers, all of the folks who enjoy the environment that we have, a very special environment we have in Stone Harbor. And finally, there's this issue of debt. Close to 20 or 25%, a quarter of the general fund budget over the last 10-year period has been involved with the management of debt service. So that's, you know, another key point that needs to be considered in municipal finance. So where's the money come from right now? Well, as you can see, disproportionately from real estate property taxes, close to 3/4 of the budget. Another 11% from borough surplus, and then 16% in what I will call the everything else category. Fees, permits, beach tags, the beach, pickleball, cell tower rental, parking meters, anything else you can think of, that's included with that. It's interesting to note the parallel between the increase in the general fund budget of the borough over the last 10 years with the increase in property taxes. A very close correlation, essentially a one-to-one correlation. As the budget has increased a little bit in excess of $6 million over the last 10 years, so has the property tax, 45 and 47% respectively. And, you know, almost irresistible to turn to the tax base in the borough, which now exceeds $4 billion with a B, $4 billion. Kind of interesting for, basically a 1.5 square miles of land. Okay, so my question for you, any Beatles fans out there? Okay. Well, no less an expert on municipal finance than George Harrison put it kind of interestingly, and I promise I won't sing this, but some of you are, I'm sure, are familiar with the song Taxman. Interesting, a Harrison song and not a Lennon-McCartney song, despite their prodigious songwriting ability. As George put it, if you drive a car, I'll tax the street. If you try to sit, I'll tax your seat. If you get too cold, I'll tax the heat. If you take a walk, I'll tax your feet. Okay. Well, the good news is we're not suggesting any of these measures for alternative revenues, but we have some other suggestions. What we want to look at today, and think of this slide as a menu, if you will, of available alternatives. And again, I'm going to return to the last point on the first slide, and that is we're not necessarily advocating any of these, but we've identified options that are available to municipalities. And they separate into two areas, really. Some having to do with non-real estate related municipal taxes, and the other means by which to raise money for local government by establishing utilities for specific purposes. Think about the water and sewer utility that we have in Stone Harbor right now. I'm going to address myself to column A of the menu, if you will, the tax aspect of it, and my colleague Chris is going to take us home and talk about municipal authorities and suggested next steps in this whole exercise. So, hotel motel occupancy tax, pretty straightforward. It is authorized in New Jersey for municipalities to use this with some very notable exceptions. Newark, Elizabeth, Atlantic City, oddly enough Cape May. And I think these are areas where there's already in place some revenue sharing kind of an arrangement with the state. Everywhere else, it's possible for the municipality to impose hotel motel occupancy taxes not to exceed 3%. The revenue raised by such a tax, and we've all paid these when you stayed out of town at a hotel and you check out and there's a percentage added to your bill. That revenue goes directly to the general fund budget. It would have the effect of taxing persons who have vacation accommodations and enjoy the borough amenities like the beach, like all the health and safety measures that are taken in the borough. But currently don't pay a fee commensurate with that. This is going to require some careful modeling, as are all of these suggestions. There needs to be a means by which we can determine what kind of revenue this would potentially produce. But we believe certainly worth the examination. Municipal sales tax. All of these unsavory taxes, right? We're going to take a look at all of them. Sales tax, again, is enabled for municipalities in New Jersey, up to 2%. So there's some pluses and minuses to this. It's another one of these taxes that is paid by folks as well as residents, but also a large number of vacationers and non-residents. And because of that, there's a larger universe, larger tax base, if you will, that would be subject to sales tax. What's objectionable about it? Of course, we're reluctant to take any measures that harm our business community in Stone Harbor. It is robust, it is vibrant, it is one of the reasons people enjoy their stay in the borough. The experience elsewhere in the state does not seem to support the suggestion that folks go elsewhere merely because of a municipal sales tax, but again, one of those things that research needs to be done. Another concern is the reliance upon the state of New Jersey, which actually collects the tax and remits it to the borough. And as my friend Chris has put it, the state sometimes tends to have sticky fingers, if you will. So, just a question of administration. Some other options, which we won't go into in detail, but again, on the menu, It's possible to have the imposition of business privilege taxes or fees or licenses. They're called various things, but the essence of it is revenue resulting from the conduct of business, but non-sales tax. Real estate transfer conveyancing taxes, the municipal occupancy tax, which is similar to the hotel motel occupancy tax, but might apply to other transient types of accommodations, vacation rentals. It is not entirely clear the statutory authority for these, so that's one thing we're going to need to examine as a threshold matter. And we're going to do a little more research on that. So with that, having lit all those fuses, I'm going to stand back and hold my ears. No, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Chris to talk about municipal authorities and to outline what the next steps on the project are.
Good morning. We're going to talk to you briefly about a couple of options that are enabled by state statute for municipalities to create utilities. The first one is a stormwater utility, and this is a fairly new thing in the state of New Jersey. A few years ago, these were enabled, and some municipalities have gone down the road to adopt them, and some are still looking at them. But this would enable a utility to levy fees to pay for infrastructure to manage and mitigate the impact of stormwater and other drainage issues. So a big chunk of what Stone Harbor faces in expenses over the next few years is infrastructure to manage rising water levels and stormwater discharge. So a utility can be established to help manage that process. And the state of New Jersey is currently offering grants to municipalities and regional consortiums to study and develop these utilities. Some of the reasons to consider the establishment of a stormwater utility, it creates a visible link between the fees that are generated and the projects that are funded. The money is not absorbed into the general operating budget of the borough. It stays within the confines of the utility to manage the projects. Utility can issue bonds with a visible revenue stream to back the bonds, alleviating the need for the borough to issue general obligation debt. Based on some very rough numbers, we think that a utility could raise $1 to $2 million a year. It meets the capital needs outside of the annual borough budget, and it puts the management of this infrastructure in well-qualified hands. Reasons to potentially object: once the utility is established, there's a risk that the soft operating costs could become excessive. Fees could be excessive over time. It would need to be structured properly to avoid political interference, but also at the same time mitigate the risk of having a lack of control. The second utility that is available is a beach utility. New Jersey shore towns are permitted to establish beach utilities to fund and manage beach-related costs. That would include beach maintenance and replenishment, lifeguard operations, life-saving equipment. The beach utility can set and collect these fees. Reasons to consider: the beach fees and related revenue streams are captured for the use of beach operations. It's not absorbed into the general operating budget. Potentially, a joint utility between Stone Harbor and Avalon would offer greater opportunity for beach engineering with a common plan for engineering and replenishment and potential operating efficiencies. Reasons to object: fees and other revenues may not be adequate to accomplish the total cost of beach management. We also need further research to confirm that a beach utility would have the same standing as a municipality to apply for federal and state grants. That's not clear at this point. So what are the next steps for everything that we've talked about for alternative revenues? Well, we need to continue working with, and all of this will be done in conjunction with the borough. This is not a project that SHPOA is going to undertake and just present to the borough. There's going to be some interactive work as we work together, but we need to understand really what of these options are permitted under state law and which are not, and under what circumstances they're permitted. We need to model what the financial impact of implementing any of these alternative revenue sources would be. Again, we'll present these findings and engage with the borough elected officials to discuss what these options are and how they could be implemented. We want to advocate for adoption of measures which are meaningful, equitable, and feasible. And we want to make sure that we're keeping you well informed of the work we're doing and the interaction that we're having with the borough.
Thank you very much, Chris. And we'll be working closely with the borough, but we appreciate comments from everyone on these and where you think they may fall, as well as any other options you want us to consider. Rich?